Very thankful for that.
He,
Again,
he,
this is a
he,
very
there, he there.
yes, sir.
I think there was a anniversary today with DP Linden and his wife. I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere in our group.
DP Linden. Okay, all right. Thank you for that, DP Dennis. So let us all join together in wishing DP Linden and his wife a happy anniversary on behalf of the president and members of the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew. Thanks for that reminder. So as we move closer to our main event, thank you. We move closer to our main event, which is a panel discussion. The LGD Hugh has kindly consented to lead us in this section of the program. So I'll ask him now to give us an overview of what to expect this evening, and then carry the first group of presenters to grace us with their presentation. LGD Hugh, over to you. Thank you.
Good evening, Acting President-Designate Derek, fellow Kiwanians, members of the SLP. This evening should be a very interesting meeting. As has been mentioned before, we are celebrating Child's Month in the month of May. And it is being celebrated under the theme, Listen Up, Children's Voices Matter. As part of this celebration, the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew will be giving our key clubs, all 9 key clubs, the opportunity to speak to us on their thoughts, their ideas, what is on their minds, and as well the solutions that they have. And this will take the form of a panel discussion. The topic for the panel discussion will be violence in schools. And as the moderator and chairman, I thought I would share some thoughts I have with you on this matter. The first is that the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew must be celebrated and lauded, because too often we think of our children as simply persons to whom we give instructions. But in fact, there should be a two-way discussion. They have ideas, they have thoughts, and maybe some of these ideas and thoughts are better than the ones that we as adults have. The second thing I don't want to say on this topic is that in relation to the topic violence in schools, I would like to suggest that a major part of the problem lies in us, the adults, lies in us, the wider society, lies in us, the village, because children are taught and they learn from us. And I'll never forget the tragic incident of Amanda Dean, who was murdered many, many years ago because of, I think, issues to do with adults around her. And many of you may not be aware that her sister or a relative of the family was murdered at a funeral, I think, just this week. So we need to listen to our children, because we are the ones who, I believe, are driving the issue of violence in schools. And in that regard, I don't know how many of you saw a video circulating on social media at one of our high schools, where purportedly the police collected many, many knives and instruments which can damage someone from children. And I'd like to suggest to you that those knives and other instruments in the main were given to them, the children, by their parents. So those are the opening remarks I would like to make. we're now going to proceed into the panel discussion. We have organized it into 3 groups. Each group will consist of 3 key clubs, and hopefully they have been prepped appropriately and will be ready to speak once they are called upon. So the first group will consist of the Arden High Key Club, the Excelsior High Key Club, and the Alpha Girls Key Club. My understanding, and I hope the key clubbers will bear with me, but my understanding is that President-elect Jessica Cummings from the Arden High School Key Club has been tasked with the responsibility of presenting the voices of the children. And she will be given 10 minutes, after which I will then call on IG Ordine McIntosh from the Excelsior High Key Club, who will make some additional comments. President-elect Jessica, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Before I start, I just want to make sure everyone's hearing me loud and clear.
We're hearing you loud and clear.
All right. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm President Jessica Cummings of the Arden High School. Today, I've been given the privilege of spreading awareness about a topic that has plagued Jamaican youth around the world, as a matter of fact. I know none of us in here is any stranger to violence in schools. Unfortunately, a lot of us have seen it in person, and those who haven't have seen it or some mention of it online. Now, when we think about violence in schools, we tend to initially think about more recent occurrences, such as the physical altercations we've seen on the news or the physical harm done to these student victims. But it's more than that. It can also include psychological abuse very commonly, sexual abuse, and cyberbullying. For a lot of us, we might wonder how it manages to get that far, or what really could have caused something like this. A lot of the time, violence in schools can be attributed to things such as peer pressure, alcohol, drug, or tobacco use, witnessing or being a victim of violence, or even mental health conditions. And we know since the pandemic, we found ourselves being apart from each other a lot. Some of us have almost forgotten how to socialize, and a lot of us can forget our moral rights and how to deal with conflict in a peaceful and civilized manner. And along with that, we know that the music we listen to can have an influence on our behavior. Gone are the days when people want to hear clean dancehall music. Nowadays it's a lot of scamming and badness and who have the best gun. And, this will have an impact on the behavior of our youth, especially since we can be impressionable. I watched this movie recently called The Imitation Game, and the character said something which really stuck with me. He said, "You know why people are violent? Because it makes them feel good. You take away the satisfaction and the act becomes quite hollow." And it's true, What happens commonly with perpetrators of violence is that they feel the need to inflict violence upon someone or something to gain some sort of satisfaction, whether it be with their need for emotional strength or safety, and so on. This satisfaction, however, is short-lived and can lead to guilt or fear of punishment, which in turn can cause them to be more violent. So now this insatiable need for violence causes a cycle to develop. And without help, this cycle can very well be unbreakable. The victims of violence are usually the most affected by the act psychologically. In children, this can affect their concentration, emotional control, and overall long-term health. It can also cause depression, anxiety, and rage. This rage can in turn cause victims to become the perpetrators. And it may come as a surprise, but even victims can experience psychological effects from these incidents. Though they may not have physically gotten hurt, the guilt they may feel from seeing it and possibly being too afraid to stop it can result in them experiencing some sort of the same psychological effects that victims do. Now, how can we stop or reduce this issue? It's important that attention is paid to every party involved in the incident in order to prevent repetition. You can help to spread awareness about violence in schools You can look out for signs of violence, such as threatening others, harming pets or other animals, or speaking or acting aggressively, and reporting these signs to the appropriate member or members of authority. And now, my fellow Kiwanians, I end this speech with a quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder the hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. So it goes. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Thank you so much for your time. At this time, I'd like to ask the Lieutenant Governor of Division 2, Audine McIntosh, to give her testimony on the matter.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can everybody see and hear me clearly?
Very.
All right, so good evening, Kiwanians. For those who don't know me, I am Audine McIntosh, the newly elected Lieutenant Governor for Key Club Division 2 and the immediate past president of the Excelsior High School. I'm just here to reiterate some of what Jessica said. I am not directly a victim, but I have witnessed a lot of instances of violence in schools. I attend the Excelsior High School, and one of our, I don't want to say it's emotional, but one of our recent issues was that we had a student being stabbed on the campus. This is not my first nor my second time experiencing a stabbing in or around my school, and it has left me feeling somewhat traumatized. And I don't feel as if there is enough support for, even though we are not direct victims of these events, we are in the space. It does affect us as students. It affects our concentration, which in turn affects our academics and our mental health. So I really do believe that we should have some form of formalized counseling sessions for especially schools in what you call quote unquote bad areas that experience a lot of violence in schools, so that our children can have better experiences and know how to cope with these situations. Thank you. That's all I have to say in terms of this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, LG Audine. Fellow Kiwanians, members of our SLP, the children are teaching us. They were given a combined 12 minutes and they have only taken 5 minutes. I wonder if some of our Kiwanians could learn from this. Based on the format, I was going to take questions after all 3 groups, all 9 key clubs have spoken. But because LG, Audine, and President Jessica have been so accommodating with their time, I will accommodate 1 or 2 questions before I move on to the second group. Are there any questions for our key clubbers? Well, I have questions. So, President Jessica, I noted your comment about what drives the violence in schools and what is providing the satisfaction for the children who are involved in the violence. And, you know, what do you think, as someone in the schools right now, what do you think the society could do to take away the motivation, the satisfaction that clearly many of these children are getting from participating in gangs and perpetrating violence? President Jessica, are you there? LG Audine, you want to take that question?
Okay, sure, no problem. Could you just repeat the last part of what you said so I can have a clear understanding of what I should answer?
The question I had was based on President Jessica's presentation, where she spoke about clearly that some of these children who are involved in these acts of violence get some satisfaction, they get some motivation. And I was asking the question, what can be done to take away the
Show it
satisfaction,
on me one more time what you're going
take
to do.
away the motivation?
Okay, in terms of the satisfaction that some students or children might get from these events, I feel as if it stems from the homes and the communities, because some persons live in some types of areas that acting a certain way is that they would think.
Fighting, run.
Sorry, President Designate Derek and IPP Michael, can you just mute those persons who are not watching their mics? Go ahead, LG Audi.
Okay, I'm saying that some persons might live in some areas or have particular parenting that they are not as sheltered as others. Sorry for my tongue-tiedness. So based on peer pressure is another reason. I remember Jessica saying that as well. So in today's society, nobody wants to talk about how you're feeling. Everybody's like, I have the biggest gun and I'm the baddest person around, and everybody wants to be the biggest and the baddest of the biggest trends that are going around currently. So I feel as if some persons, that's not really and truly who they are, but because the media is saying, oh, if my fire the biggest gun, me the hottest boy around, or if my box down a teacher, me the hottest girl around, everybody will try to follow in the footsteps of the media. And I feel as if they would be getting some form of satisfaction from that. And in terms of reculturing students, we could probably do some seminars or try to change the media that we're feeding our children, because at the end of the day, I really do believe that the adults are somewhat to blame, because they really do allow, for example, you have a child, you allow your child to do anything they want. You're not thinking about, oh, what if my neighbor see my child doing this? They're going to want to do that as well. So I feel as if students and parents are to blame in this fashion and for these issues. I hope that answers your question, sir.
It does. It is instructive that you zeroed in on what I believe is one of the principal factors, which is the role that the media plays and the spotlight that is put on dysfunctional behavior versus those students who are good role models, who should be looked upon and emulated by their peers. But of course, and this doesn't apply only to violence, there is this focus and spotlight on all the bad things versus the good things. So thank you for that, LG Odin. Any other questions? Any other questions from the wider audience before I move on to the second group?
LG?
Yes.
LG, Hugh?
Yes.
Just a question I'd like to pose to LG Odin. You suggested that formalized counseling could be a solution or part of a solution to the problem. Are you saying that we should have counseling as part of the school agenda? Or are you saying that counseling should be available for the students to go to if they need it? Just want to get that clear.
Okay, so in terms, I guess I mean a little of both. Like, not a lot of students know that there is counseling available. So I feel as if it should be advertised in such a way that students know that, hey, if you're having a problem or if this event happens at school, like for example, the stabbing that happened at mine, there was no advertisement to say that, hey, if you're traumatized by this or if you need somebody to talk to, come here. Schools don't, well, my school did not provide those those events for us. So I believe that either we put it into the curriculum itself, like we just have a session where we could talk. Well, I was at a sermon the other day. It's called the Restorative Justice Act. There's restorative justice practices that you call a circle. So in that circle, everybody is able to talk about how their feelings are feeling, how the check-ins and stuff like that. So I believe that's a way in which we could implement some form of formal counseling for students, even if it's not them going into the office to speak to the guidance counselor, because not everybody would like to do that, but they are suffering from these events that are happening. So I hope that answers your question, DP Kingsley.
Thank you, LG Odin. We're going to have time for other questions. I'm going to move on to the second group. And the second group consists of the St. Andrew High School for Girls Ski Club, the Calabar High Key Club, and the Queens High Key Club. I understand that we have two presenters. I hope I'm going to pronounce the names correctly, because no, the young people nowadays, they don't have simple names. So I have here Zeda Lee and Camus. Zeda, Camus, are either of you on? All right, I'm not hearing anything. Are there any key clubbers from St. Andrew High or Calabar or Queens who has been prepared to speak on this panel discussion?
Good night.
LGD,
Good.
if I may, we do have the rep from St. Andrew here with us at POC. I do believe the person from.
I'm not hearing you so clearly, PD Derek.
Sorry about that. I'm saying the speaker from St. Andrew High School is actually here at the POC.
All right, so
she'll
could you give
present
her the
from here.
mic?
She has it. She'll go in,
Okay.
in a minute. All right.
Okay.
Hello.
Good night, everyone. I'm Secretary Zeta from St. Andrew High School for Girls Ski Club. So tonight I'll be speaking on violence in schools. As seen in many recent occurrences in schools right across the world, but more specifically in Jamaica, such as the stabbing of a 10th grade student at Peters Field High, which I'm sure you all may have heard about, violence is an ever-looming threat to the livelihood and well-being of many Jamaican students. However, this significant issue goes much deeper than just the surface. These occurrences of violence in schools lead us to ponder what causes students to resort to such heinous behaviors, what are the effects on not only the victims, but also the perpetrators, and what solutions can be done to mitigate and ultimately put an end to violence in schools. To begin, two reasons why students may resort to violence include poor anger management skills and the lack of the necessary emotional support necessary. What is meant by poor anger management skills? For most students, violence is seen as the first approach to dealing with conflict. When somebody does something, for example, steps on your foot, your first thought is to step back on their foot. You no longer, want to speak about it or say what can be done. Also, children are no longer taught how to have a discussion about their feelings. As such, it becomes pent up, which in some cases may lead to violent outbursts. Secondly, the lack of the necessary emotional support. Students coming from communities plagued by violence or who see violence as a means of conflict resolution do not get the necessary emotional support from the family and the school. Moving on to the effects. Some effects of violence in schools include physical injury. So, you end up in the hospital, and it's also a never ending cycle. So, some people are the exceptions and they make it out, but according to a study, nearly 8 in 10 students in Jamaican high schools claim they have witnessed violence in their communities. Some of these same people will be the one to, to carry out violent behaviors amongst their peers.
Okay. Good
So I
night,
now hand
everyone.
over to Calabar. Sorry.
Okay. Good night, everyone. My name is President Dante Whiteley of the Calabar High School Key Club, and I'll be taking you through the different solutions that we can use to mitigate the violence within schools, right? So now, during this research that we conducted, we came across a number of solutions that we could use to, tackle this problem. The first of which is that of seminars. The students who usually start fights or engage in brutal altercations are usually the ones that are hard to talk to. In other words, they refuse to listen to counselors or people of higher positions, such as teachers. However, if seminars are conducted where they are being counseled, not one-on-one, but with another group of people there who are similar to them as it relates to behavior, it would help. These students will be more open to listening as they wouldn't feel attacked, subsequently changing their behavior. In terms of a one-on-one situation, they might feel pressured and they might feel attacked, because the counselor is speaking directly to them. But if it was some form of group setting, maybe they could bounce off the different ideas proposed by the different persons within that seminar. The second is that of counselors and mentorships. Yes, students refuse to listen to teachers, the principal, their parents, etc. But sometimes it's better for them to have someone they can relate to. For example, another student or any old boy or an old girl who was engaged in fights or mischievous acts and decided to refrain from being violent. And that person would also know the long-term and the short-term consequences of their actions. Hearing words from a person with experience tends to push them to do better or at least try to change. Another solution proposed was that of programs. I'm also the student council president for the Calabar High School, right? And one of the things that I have learned is, the usual punishments such as detention or the suspension, they do not work. I personally don't believe they have any use. If you're going to send a student home on a suspension for them causing some form of violence at the school, how is that going to help them, right? You're only, especially in COVID time, one of the biggest issues for us having violence in school is because the students have lost their social skills. So if you suspend them, you're basically making their social skills worse because you're taking them out of school for, say, 2 weeks at most, and you're contributing to the learning loss that COVID has already caused. So when those same students are engaged in, say, fights, for example, why not have them stay after school and learn how to work together? Have those same students, say, clean up a block, for instance, learning to work together, right? Because I believe that's more effective. Or put them in, say, different clubs or sports where they can channel their anger into more fruitful ways while benefiting themselves at the end of the day. As it relates to what I'll be speaking of for the 2 minutes, I wanted to talk about peer pressure. Now, peer pressure is the process in which individuals within the same group influence others in that same group to engage in a behavior or activity that they may not otherwise engage in. I'm getting a bit of a feedback.
IPP Michael, President Designate, can you help us? Go ahead, President Dante.
All right. So peer pressure is the process in which individuals within the same group influence others in the group to engage in a behavior or activity they may not otherwise engage in. In some instances, this leads to them treating others poorly solely for the validation of their friends. For example, in society today, a lot of our young men in society are treating people poorly, for mainly our women, right? They're treating our women poorly solely for the validation of their friends. Their friends might gaslight them into saying something to a young lady on the street or doing something to a young lady on the street that they otherwise wouldn't do. And this is solely for the recognition. And I believe that we can kind of form some form of mentorship programs where we have, say, the men who are leaders in our society speaking to these youths, coming into the schools and talking to them on how to treat others, especially our women, right? But there are a number of solutions and there are a number of things that we could do, but unfortunately we don't have the time. But I thank you all here today for listening to me as I am now finished with this presentation.
Thank you very much, President Dante and Secretary Zeta, who spoke before you. You have represented your key clubs very well, and you have in fact identified a number of critical interventions that can be useful in tackling this problem of violence in schools. Are there any questions for either of the two young people? If not, I have questions. So I think it was Secretary Zeta, you mentioned, and I was fascinated that 8 in 10 of our children in school have witnessed violence. And of course, children learn what they live. Now, in terms of solutions, a number of things were mentioned in terms of conflict resolution, anger management, and most interestingly, utilizing this rather than suspension, because suspension puts them back maybe where exactly they are learning these antisocial behaviors. President Dante, I think you were the one who spoke about the issue of suspensions not really working. Would you want to expand on this a little bit more?
Certainly. Say, for instance, the society that we live in today, right? We've been away from school for 2 years. The social skills of the youth right now, it's terrible because violence is the first answer to any sort of conflict that arises. As what the secretary from St. Andrew High School had mentioned, you step on someone's clerks, the first thing they want to do is box in your face. And it's so simple to fix that issue, like just pull out a toothbrush and clean it off, right? Say that happens in the classroom setting. Someone steps on the students' clerks, then box them in the face, they start to fight. You're going to say, all right, I'm going to send you home for X amount of days. What are you doing? You're sending them home. The students are wearing suspensions as badges of honor. They're basically saying, yeah, I'm gonna get suspended for this, I'm a bad man. Then they go into the community and then the persons around them probably hype them up and they say, yeah, man, any boy step on the clock, say a bad man, box them in them face. What is that teaching them? Then they come back to school. The problem has not been fixed. The only thing that you have done is strengthen that idea within them that they're a bad man. And this is how you go about fixing a problem. Just box a boy in the face. That's all you're doing. Instead of doing that, why not keep those same students at school, which is something that I do as student council president, advocate on the behalf of the students. Instead of sending them home, I say, okay, let those same students who, since you want to fight, the same strength and energy where you use fight, you can use it to clean up, say, 5 classrooms for an entire week after school with the same person where you fight. You're learning certain behaviors and you're learning certain things. You know, you're learning how to work together despite the differences that you might have with each other. If you stay after school and you clean up those 5 classrooms with that person, you're going to see that person up in your face for the rest of 5 days. Who knows? After that, maybe and that person can turn into best friends after that. Who knows?
Very well said, President Dante. I don't think I'll forget your statement that suspensions are now badges of honor. Any other questions for either President Dante or Secretary Zeta before we move on? Okay, well, we will have some time at the very end after the third group because we're on track. These key clubbers fervently believe that brevity is the soul of wit. we might need you to come and teach some of our Kiwanians about that. So group 3 comprises the Holy Childhood High School Key Club, and of course, Wolmer's Boys and Wolmer's Girls Key Club. I have a name here, Carson Spencer. I believe he's the Wolmer's Boys Vice President and Secretary. Is he one of the presenters? Or are there presenters from either Wolmer's Girls or Holy Childhood who are prepared to speak?
Good evening. Is everybody hearing me?
We're hearing you, President-elect Ramonique.
All right. Everybody seeing me as well?
We are seeing you, President-elect Ramonique.
Good evening, everyone. So we had split the topic into different aspects. We wanted to focus on how we as students can reduce violence within schools, how we as Key Club members can reduce violence within schools, and the different types of violence that are within our schools. But before we get in depth of violence within our schools, I will hand over to second Vice President of the Holy Childhood High School, Miss Kayla Barnett.
Good evening, everyone. Violence in schools. With the reopening of face-to-face schools about 3 months ago, many actions had taken place. From simple arguments over petty things to stabbing one another over. Lots of these types of actions have stemmed from their surroundings. From being homeless, the students of these schools have been more exposed to violence, maybe in their community, the songs they listen to. We Key Clubbers have seen and heard all of what is going on, absolutely distasteful. So we have come together to help put a stop to it.
We'll now have Aiden Kelly from the Wilmot Boys High School.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Secretary-elect Aiden Kelly. Give me 1 second. Not right. There. All right. So, as we know, violence in schools is a major problem all over the world. Violence in schools can be defined as aggressive force or power that may be physical or oftentimes verbal that is used to intentionally humiliate, assault, or injure an individual or group of individuals in an educational institution. Violence in schools is not only limited to student-to-student conflict, but may also occur between students and other members of staff. Now, there's a few different types of violence in schools, some of which being bullying, assault with or outside school property, harassment, whether it be verbal or sexual, vandalism, robbery, the bringing of weapons at school, as well as corporal punishment inflicted by members of staff on students.
So another form of violence within schools that we would like to focus on was cyberbullying. With students being online for the 2-year period, cyberbullying was really dominant. And even though we weren't physically at school, it was still within schools that students were being bullied. So our secretary from Wilmot's Girls, Talia Jade, is going to speak on what we as students and what we as Key Clubs can do to reduce violence within our schools.
Thank you. Okay, good night, everyone. So how can we as students prevent violence in schools? So to prevent means to stop something from happening completely. In order to do this, we must first acknowledge the fact that 1, the change we want to see will not happen overnight. This means we must make a conscientious and deliberate effort to break down any systems of violence in our educational institutions. Violence is not only physical, so we must not be blindsided, and we must be able to identify all forms of violence in our schools. We must start with ourselves and the people we can directly impact. We must do some honest self-introspection and seek resolve. For example, seek therapy. And we're in the day and age of the internet, so we can use resources on the internet to work on ourselves. If we have friends that are bullies, we must check them and we must let them know that the pain and hurt they're causing is wrong. We must stand out and use our voices. We must not allow our friends to continue to act as if the way they carry themselves or interact with others isn't hurtful. We should embrace and be empowered by our rights. As previously said, any kind of violence is unjustifiable. And keeping this in mind, we should be encouraged to be more assertive and demanding that violent situations in our schools end. Article 19 under the Convention of the Rights of Children states that children have the right to be protected from being hurt and mistreated physically or mentally. So how can we as key clubbers prevent violence in schools? As key clubbers, we're not just here to do beach cleanups and help renovate schools. We must also use our voices to impact our community. Martin Luther King said, "In the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." We must be open about the elephant in the room topics in our meetings. We must shed light on the topics persons usually avoid discussing or topics people shy away from. When we avoid these topics, the violence continues, the hate continues, and we should never turn a blind eye to a person in need of support. We can create safe spaces. For example, designate people in our clubs as mentors for those being affected to go to confide in. And we have to be cognizant of the fact that not every victim of violence will feel comfortable. So we can be the middleman between the guidance counselor and people who are being bullied or who are experiencing violence. I'll end with the famous quote, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." This means we should advocate for ineffective ways of dealing with violence in schools to come to an end. Avoiding these topics will encourage victims. We should avoid encouraging victims of child abuse to take on an adapt and overcome mentality when it comes to any kind of violence or abuse. For example, we should encourage not only victims, but everyone to embrace their individuality. And I know it's easier said than done, but it is possible, and it starts with us. As key clubbers, we must display exemplary behavior. Thank you.
Thank you to our secretary, Thalia Jade. We'll now go back to Aiden Kelly, who will close off our presentation.
Is Secretary-elect Aiden there?
Yes. As was mentioned before, as key clubbers, it's up to us to be the voices for change in our communities, as we can't always just rely on other members of our communities to solve our problems for us. As much as we'd like to rely on our elders and our community leaders, sometimes it's up to us to make the change, because after all, we're going to be the leaders of tomorrow, and we can't just leave every problem to somebody else. That's why we need to take initiatives into our hands that will benefit not just our schools, but our wider communities, to make Jamaica and by extension the world a better place.
Thank you, Secretary-elect Aiden Kelly. And fellow Kiwanians, members of our SLP. I don't know if many of you like athletics like I do, but Group 3, which was made up of Holy Childhood Women's boys and girls. They had on the first leg President-elect Ramonique, who handed over to second VP Kayla Barnett on the second leg, who then handed over to Secretary-elect Aiden on the third leg. And they finished on the final leg with Secretary Thaler Jade. And I must commend them on an excellent and well-run relay. And in particular, I think they made the suggestion that, in fact, one of our solutions can be our key clubs. We have key clubs. North St. Andrew has 9 key clubs. A number of other clubs, Kiwanis clubs, have key clubs. And maybe key clubs ought to be taking on, maybe as a project, maybe as a major project, maybe as a signature project, the whole issue of violence in schools. I would suggest that our key clubbers, based on what they have said here today, could be excellent role models so that other children in high schools can see what is a positive role model. So commendations to all of the schools, all of the presenters. I would like to finish this segment at 8 o'clock with the permission of Acting President-designate Rick. So we're only at 7:49. So I'll throw the floor up now. Are there any questions from anyone for any of the presenters? And of course, you know that if you don't have any questions, I will have. Any questions? Okay, well, I would like to start with a question around my suggestion. And this is being thrown to any of the 9 key clubs present. What is it you think that key clubs can do to assist to mitigate this scourge of violence in our schools? Any takers?
I'll go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think we need to be real about the situation. I think, as I said earlier, we avoid a lot of topics, especially the elephant in the room topics like corporal punishment. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, and a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the fact that violence in schools does not only consist of student to student conflict. It can be between students and teachers, students and other staff members. So if we want to get rid of violence on a whole, we have to be able to acknowledge the fact that we must, well, you know, honestly, it's not easy because we've been avoiding it for so long. We really need to take a step back and think about it. But I feel like the best way to mitigate the problem is to identify it and acknowledge it, be real about it, and then we move forward from there.
That was an excellent response. In fact, I really did not think about the role that corporal punishment could be playing in maybe endorsing that violence is good in some shapes and in some forms. And maybe that is, in fact, sending the wrong message. So that was a very, very, very thought-provoking response. Any other questions, fellow Kiwanians? Questions can also come from any of the sponsored, any of the SLP club members that are present.
Sorry, if I may, LGD, you're not acknowledging the hands, so I'll just go ahead with my question.
Oh yes, I can't see the hands, so just go ahead.
Okay, yeah, there are at least two other hands that are up as well. So my question would be to the key clubbers to find out if they believe that the school administrations are doing enough, because I feel like the students who are perpetrating violence, I think they're just a few in number, and if they're able to, I don't know, identify them from early, I don't think they come into the schools in first form as, you know, violence producers. So if they're able to possibly identify some of them from early and nip it in the bud, I think we might have better outcomes. I want to know if they think that the administrations are doing enough. But as the student mentioned, corporal punishment just a while ago, it crossed my mind. I'm wondering if when we had corporal punishment in schools, if we had this level of violence. I think it's something worth investigating. Thank you.
LGD, let me help you a little bit. We do have a SLP member in-house who has the comment, and then there are 3 other hands that are up as well. So can we take this person who is at the POC? She's an SLP member from St. George's College.
Please,
okay,
go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm LG Richards from Division 1. Hearing everyone's comments on violence, my take is for student leaders in school, not everyone is bold enough or have enough confidence to go to the problem makers. So for the adults out there who have experience with working with shy, per se, students, what is your advice to give to us as student leaders to help our peers to make the route of doing good?
That question is directed to anyone in particular?
No, just like anyone, the adults who have answers.
I would take a shot at it, GD.
Go ahead.
If I may. I think the students, the SLPs present having the conversation now is saying a couple of things. One, that they are aware of the issue. I think someone mentioned the elephant in the room. And I think maybe different SLPs to varying degrees are not in a position to engage, or they're shy. They don't know, they're not, at least in their own mind, thinking that they have the wherewithal so to do. But I may suggest the following, that you could engage your fellow classmates, clubites, in terms of brainstorming strategies. You may also engage your faculty in terms of highlighting the concerns you see and share with them your particular thoughts, recommendation, and to foster collaboration in terms of developing and executing various initiatives within the school community. So I think, especially through the Key Club. So if you don't have the equipment or the resources, or you need further strengthening, then you could reach out to your faculty and start a discussion around that, and then take it from there.
Thank you, PVP Mark. That was very, very well said. I see hands.
Yes, we have 2 others, LGD. There's Secretary-elect Aiden, and there's David Bromfield.
All right, so we'll take Secretary-elect Aiden, and then after Secretary-elect Aiden, we'll take David Bromfield Jr. Go ahead, Secretary-elect Aiden.
Thank you. I wanted to build on an earlier point made about corporal punishment. Something that we don't really consider is that most of us aren't really familiar with areas outside of where we live, because we're all contained within the city. So we might not be familiar with problems faced by students outside of our zone. In rural areas, things like corporal punishment may be more common than where we're used to, but we're not aware of it because we don't really investigate places outside of our comfort zone. So I think it's important to highlight that not only can we push for change in our own communities, but the importance of activism that will benefit the broader society, because our local efforts aren't going to reach as far as we'd like them to, if we're being honest. So I think it's important for all of us to speak up about issues like this, to inspire other students and other people in different areas to make the same changes that we're striving to make.
Very well said, Secretary-elect Aiden. David Ramfield.
Right. Good night. Just to lead off what Eden was saying about corporal punishment, then I segue into my question. To answer the question that was proposed earlier, corporal punishment actually proves to be ineffective. It can solve a problem momentarily, but in a long-term manner, it is not solved. That is based on research from the American Psychological Board, research done here in the Caribbean, so it is updated to the Caribbean. But outside of that, the question that I wanted to ask involves cyberbullying. The commitment that was made by Talia Jade, outside of what generally socially can be done to change, because social change, what we find that is social change is just social change, but social change has to be backed by some form of social policy. And what we're finding in Jamaica in particular is that our laws are very outdated in terms of cyberbullying. In the real world bullying situation, most incidents of bullying occur between the victim and the bully, or a group of bullies in the school. However, whereas victims of the real world bullying can be granted some reprieve when they go home, there's simply no escape with cyberbullying. I was actually a victim of cyberbullying earlier this year from someone at my school, and he impersonated me on Twitter, created a bunch of Instagram pages with my name and posted some things that could basically lead to the demise of my reputation. And nothing could be done by the school administration, because what you find is that the laws are lacking. So the bandwidth of which the school was able to act was limited because of Jamaica's laws. So I think when we're looking at also solving the problem, we have to look at Jamaica's social reality and how the laws are basically absent to address those realities, because that's very, very important. Essentially, I could have pressed charges, but knowing someone as me who's versed in the law and having a background of legal fraternity, it would not go anywhere with the courts because of how the law was set up by Parliament. So I think that's an important part in the conversation, bringing in the role of government, because they play an important role in protecting us as students, as outlined by the Child Care Protection Act, the Ministry of Education Act. It's very, very important. The school is a microcosm of the larger society. And if we fail to address these issues adequately, it will really cost Jamaica in the future, especially considering the pandemic and all of the social changes that happened and psychological changes that happened among students. We really need to address these issues. So that's all I had to say, and ask Kayla if she thought of any policy changes that she thinks the government could implement going forward.
So Theda, do you want to have the last word?
Okay, sure. That was a mouthful, so I'll take it one step at a time. Honestly, I think we just need to keep one thing in mind. We need to remember that violence, no matter in what form, whether it's corporal punishment, physical, cyberbullying, it is injustifiable. So we must we must be able to identify it in order to stop it. That's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Celia. We have come to the end of this panel discussion.
LGD.
Yes.
Yes, please allow me.
Go ahead,
LG Treasure had asked a question and PVP Mark addressed it, but I looked at her face and at the time she wasn't completely satisfied with the response because she thought that we were channeling her back to the same people whom she was asking the solution from. And as I'd explained to her, and she was a little bit more comfortable or more clear with the response that PVP Mark gave, the conversation is what is important, and a conversation needs to be had. The bullies thrive on your silence, just like with violence generally. The criminals know that you don't speak, and therefore they come in and they harass you, and they use that to intimidate you. So the conversation is what was important that PVP Mark was referring, that you start that conversation. And even though he said the faculty, you started with your faculty. If the problem, as you identified, is with the faculty, then you might want to choose to go to the care advisor, or you might want to speak to your parents, or as I'd also highlighted to her, if she's more comfortable speaking with her peers. And sometimes what that does is just to have that communication, and you may even find out that others are in a similar situation, and then you will have voice in numbers. And so that may help. But what is most important is that that conversation is started, because as long as you're silent and as long as you keep it to yourself, then you're essentially accepting that as your reality. And so that's the critical element. There's no foolproof or at least absolute response or answer, because every circumstance may be different. But at least if you start with the conversation, then you're on the path to finding the right channel to solving the problem. And hopefully that answers the question. All right. Thank you, LG.
And thank you for that intervention, IPP Michael, because it's a good way on which to end this program. This panel presentation has struck a blow against violence in schools, because we are not silent. We are making our voices heard. There has been a multitude of ideas, suggestions that have come up out of this panel discussion. And to the extent that we can keep the conversation open, to the extent that we can continue to make our voices heard, and to the extent that we can contribute to each of us continuing to think about what can be done, this has been a very useful panel discussion. And I thank the key clubbers from Arden, Excelsior, Alpha, St. Andrew, Hive, for girls, Calabar, Queens, Holy Childhood, Wilmot's Boys and Wilmot's Girls. And President-designate Rick, I now hand the program back to you.
Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much, LGDFU, in your own unimitable style for conducting this segment of the program. I thank you very much. I'd like to also thank our SLPs who participated. You know, I listened, and I'm hearing the hurt, I'm hearing the concern, and I'm hearing the passion. But rest assured, this thing as big as it is, you, our key clubbers, are not alone, right? And this club remains resolute in providing whatever support we can to assist in mitigating or eliminating totally this whole matter of violence in schools. We're right there with you. So, like LGD Hugh pointed out, the conversation has started. So it shall not die. Let this conversation continue, because it's a necessary conversation to have. We're running a little over time. So at this point, we still have some business to take care of. So at this point, I'll request a motion that our meeting be extended sufficiently to conclude the business of the club.
Needed time. Director Jason move the notion for the needed time for the meeting.
Thank you,
15
Director
minutes.
Jason. Do we have
Seconded.
a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No one against? Guys have it. Thank you very much. So we continue. And I do believe at this point we have announcements. I know we have 2 announcements in-house. Those of you with announcements online, queue them up and we will take them shortly. But I'll first ask Didi Primrose. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. And I do believe you have something to say to us. I'll use this opportunity to invite you now to do so.
President-elect, members of the board, visiting clubs, Kiwanians, SLPs. Now, can I just say the hand that you gave the SLPs was a little bit anemic, so we can get the next one, please. I am not afraid to say I absolutely love Key Club. It was the best 7 years of my life in the K family. And because of that, I have spent my life as an adult working, dreaming of how I can come back home and give to my K family. My K family means the world to me. It is very much my first family. And I've got that opportunity now. I am running a research project on attitudes to health in this, my rock. I live with several health issues. 2 of them surround blood and organ donation. I am a campaigner for blood and organ donation in the UK. And I'm proud to say that I get a lot of funding from large organizations to carry that out. And I've always wanted to take that money, bring it here and do the same thing. So in the next couple of months, I will be donating £1,000 to this club and £1,000 to Holy Childhood High School Key Club, which is my alma mater Key Club. I'll also be donating some money to Ferncourt High School Key Club. And I will also be donating via North St. Andrew a sum to be discussed and agreed to Matthew 25:40, because I went there the other day and I was completely inspired by the young men that I met there. People who live with health issues are silent heroes. You don't know what they go through. I'll share an example with you. I got up yesterday feeling wonderful. I was taken to lunch by someone, and 10 minutes after eating my lunch, I was violently ill, and it wasn't the food. It was just because I have underlying issues. And my friend looked at me and said to me, for a moment there, I thought you were actually going to pass out on me. And I campaign for raising awareness around health issues because you don't see someone's story when you see them. And the strength that some people have in this world to live with health issues is unbelievable. I've been coming to this club as an the presenter kept calling it sponsored youth program. I was a sponsored youth. I'm a bit older than SLP labels, but I have grown up with a lot of the young men I'm looking at now in this club. And I am so proud. I work on radio and everybody knows about Kiwanians England. Believe you me, they hear more about Key Club than they hear about lots of other things that they're supposed to hear about. And I am immensely proud to be a member of this K family. And I could be doing so many things this evening, but I am here because I want to be here, because the men of this club helped build me, and they're still building me with the legacy that they have left me. I could call names, but I'm not going to do that this evening. A lot of them know themselves, but I'm so proud to be able to give back in a small way for now, so that we can do things that will benefit this or Jamaica. So that's it for now. Thank you so much, and I look forward to more.
that is certainly good news for us, good news for the St. Andrew High School Key Club. And I thank you, PD Primrose, for bringing this good news to us. Can we have another round of applause for her, please? Thank you so very much. All right, there's one other announcement in-house, and I'll ask DP Kingsley to make that announcement.
Thank you, P. Derek. Well, Kiwanans, forgive me, but just allow me a moment to say a very big thank you to our key clubbers who on very, very short notice came up with all of those wonderful ideas. Their presentation was really very interesting, thought-provoking, and we got some ideas of solutions that can be put in action. We will need to discuss them elsewhere. But I'm really proud of our key clubbers. They have done us well. They got the topic and really ran with it. In saying that, it is not rewarding them per se, but I'm here to announce the renewal of the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew scholarship for 2022. We will be posting the information. All you need chat groups, but I just want to say the Kiwana of the annual North St. Andrew Club Scholarship. The scholarship is developed to target one active Key Club member currently in their first year of sixth form at the time of application. The award will be disbursed during the final year of the sixth form. Scholarship candidates must be endorsed by their faculty and Kiwanis advisors as a key clubber possessing a strong personal character and demonstrating exemplary leadership and academic skills. The maximum amount of the scholarship is $60,000, and it's paid directly to their high school and may be used to cover tuition, room and board, or any other ancillary fees. A maximum amount of $20,000 will be paid directly to a bookstore towards purchase of books. As I said before, the information will be posted in the various groups, and so anyone needing that it should be able to access the information immediately. I leave this podium. I wanted to say that scholarship, the closing date for the scholarship is June 20th. So you have approximately 1 month to make your applications.
Sorry, DV, just for everyone who is listening, for the application or information on the scholarship, you can go directly to our website. If you have a pen, you can make a note. We'll post it in the chat. It's kcnsa.org/scholarship. That's kcnsa.org/scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Jason.
Thank you, DP Kingsley. I'll now invite Chairman Donovan to come forward with his announcement.
Good evening, fellow Kiwanians, SLPs, and guests. The Community Service Committee, which is to advise that there will be 2 projects this weekend. The first project would be the crosswalk repainting at the Connelly Road crosswalk. This is where the Wilmer's Preparatory School is located. The second project will be the Labor Day project, which will be at the SOS Children's Village. And that would be Monday, May 23. And it starts at 8 o'clock. The repainting for the crosswalk starts at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Chairman Donovan. Are there other announcements online? I'm seeing a hand up. Is it?
Yes,
EP
thank
Nicholas.
you. Yes,
Go
can I
ahead.
go ahead?
Yes, go ahead
Is
with
it-
your announcement.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone. I am First VP Nicholas Joel, so I'm the UA CKI. We will be having our joint project with the University of Technology, Papine, on our Labor Day, on Labor Day, which is on Monday, our beautification project. And we will just be doing some light painting and beautification at the Tarrant Basic School. And if any other clubs wish to donate, they can contact me at 876-895-3584, or they can reach the president in the KCNSA groups. I am sure that our contacts are also in the chat, so you could reach out to the president of the respective clubs and you can get through to one of us. Also, the poster with the information on it will also be sent in the WhatsApp group, so you can look out for that. Thank you very much for having us at the meeting.
Thank you for that, EP Nicholas.
Hi, good evening. This is President Camille from the Kiwanis Club of Constant Spring. We're having our fish fry on June 3rd, 2022. And it's presents from the kitchen of KCCS. We will have fried fish, steamed fish, brown stew fish, shrimp, chicken or pork. And we have 2 ways you can donate. You can buy, and we will deliver to you based on the number of orders. You get free orders for 10 or more, free delivery. Or you can go to the Heart Trust, 10 Hope Road, to pick up your delivery. Otherwise, proceeds we have in aid of the club's charities. So we have an online purchase app, and if you buy online, it will be donated to 2 children's home and a shelter. And so we want persons to both purchase online and come by and buy fish with 10 or more. So we look forward to the support from all our Kiwanis brothers and sisters. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We have another in-house announcement, and then we'll go back to the announcements online.
Good evening, everyone. LG Richards here again. The Norman Manley High School will be having a Labor Day project on Labor Day. They are accepting donations for paint. It's a beautification project, and any other donations that you guys are able to put. If you need contact with anyone to make donations, you can contact me at I was just thinking if I should just give up my number or not. But you could message the Key Club D1 Instagram page. I will answer definitely. And I will give like instructions on how you can donate and your donations be collected.
Thank you very much. Another in-house announcement from our
Thank you, Acting President. this is just a reminder to the club, and well, more of an appeal. Our Child Month supplement is due 2 Thursdays from today, the 27th of May, and we're still in need of ads. Today's what day? Oh, well, yes, next week, Thursday. Sorry, my math. Next week, Thursday, we're still in need of ad in order to create a substantial supplement. This is our 40th year, and so we're asking those of us who have companies or contacts and links to companies to come on board to get some companies to sponsor ads. So we still have space for ads, and we're asking for the advertisement for the to put in the supplement in the Observer. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other announcements online? Going once, twice, 3 times. Thank you very much. No other announcements online. I just want to remind everybody that the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew has 2 fundraisers running. The first one being the raffle, which is being hosted by the Division 23 West. We still have raffle booklets for sale, specifically to the members of the Kiwanis Club of North St. Andrew for further distribution. So contact me after this and get your booklet. There's also a play night that is being organized for the 22nd of June. The hot running play, Hide Your Husband. We have tickets for that as well. Reach out and we'll get yours to you. And the Human and Spiritual Committee, their monthly church services is on the 22nd of May. That's a couple days from now, the day before Labor Day. So come out and give your support. It's at the Swallowfield Chapel, 5 to 9 Swallowfield Road. And the service starts at 10:30, right? You can also join us on YouTube, but the chairman has made a special appeal for at least 12 members from North St. Andrew to attend this service. So do come out and support this event. Thank you. At this point, I'll invite the Sarge to come forward and do his thing. Please make the Sarge feel welcome. Warm welcome for the Sarge.
Thank you very much. Kiwanis in the house and Kiwanis online. PP Dudley. PP Dudley. Can you stand for me, sir? All right. You go and collect on this side. And PP Dennis. I put your shirt for white. You can't see when you have put the money in my pocket. You go and collect on this side. All right. Pastor Ian. You stand up. Fellow Kiwanians, some of the younger ones might not know past director Ian. But the last time I saw him at this club meeting, he had gray hair. And the time before that, it was black. And look at him now. Stand up. What's the color of his hair? Okay, so pay something for the nothing where you have and sit down. All right, fellow Kiwanians, this club is very good to some of our members and has always been over the years. Dennis, in that church they're collecting offering. You don't know how many money are charging the men. So you can't collect from them until I ask them to pay. All right. Why I mentioned this is that some of these directors, some of these vice presidents, some of these presidents would not have been a director, a vice president, or a president for no organization at the age they are directors now. So they ought to be grateful to this club and pay something for that elevation. And when I speak about these men, I am going to just deal with the new ones now. You have VP designate Dwayne, you stand up. Shirt red and pretty. It's not, all right, sorry about that. No. All right, fellow Kiwanis. Fellow Kiwanis, I cannot be charged for that. Yeah, I don't have on my glasses, and because VP designates Dwayne is of that size and normally wears a red shirt. Right. Director designate David not here. Director designate or Director designate Kingsley, you stand up. VP designate John. Big elevation, man. You stand up. You pay something. Just something. No. In the club we're talking about. Yeah. All right. VP Audley, you stand up. For the Kiwanans, this evening is a big evening at this club when we have our SLPs teaching us some things. And normally, when we have no big night at this club, look at the VP. Last week he wore, pardon me for my recognition of colors. He wore a beige suit with a bright orange shirt underneath. And look how come at the people meeting this evening. I don't know if President Designate Derek told him that he was not sitting at the head table, but in the front row. You pay some money as well. Collect some from him. Him not have much money because they pay for the election last week and lose. All right, yeah. Him think it was a by-election, it was a real election. Right. And DP Michael, you stand up. How many Thursdays are there in May? No. How many Thursdays in this year, May then? This year, May, yeah. Because I don't know how you calculate, but you said 2 Thursdays leaving this May. What date is today? Today is the 19th for your information. Dudley, what date is next week? Thursday. Right. Is there another Thursday after that? Thank you very much. You pay 500 and sit down. You have young SLPs in here and you're trying to warp their minds. Right? And I don't have enough time to charge everybody, but I saw a good friend of mine, Past Director Patrick. You know, my heart could have make more this evening. Because last week, even a black suit, burgundy shirt, and black tie. And his friend Dennis asked him why we were suit last week. Him say him hope them would have nominated him for president designate from the floor. If you don't have nobody to nominate you, you can't come with the expectation that you will. PP Dudley, as a matter of fact, DLG Elate, you stand up, you're my sponsor. and you need to set a little example. You know, anyway, I go, no, I'm not going to charge you. PP Dudley, fellow Kiwanans, PP Dudley sat behind me. And when DLG Leighton walked in, I said, Dudley, Leighton, yeah, where am I do ya? You forget, sir, Leighton bringing a club, him can't take you out back, You pay 200 and sit down, informer. Informer. Fellow Kiwanans, my best friend passed away recently. Grieving before his grave, I said, bro, I really miss you. My wife has been pregnant for 8 months now. How about you reincarnate as my child? 1 month later, my wife gave birth to a big boy. As my child grew older each day, I realized he looks a lot like my best friend. I'm really happy that my prayer was answered. No, just take some from him. No, okay. His phone made a sound in the meeting while I was sitting there, and Ian tell me. So just collect $200 from me. Thank you very much.
Where's the joke?
The joke just made a sound a while ago.
Hang Mike Pence.
Thank you very much.
Careful there, DP. Never. Promoting violence.
All right. We'll now have the drawing of the he's off the hook this evening. We'll now have a drawing of the 50-50. And I'll ask our lovely PD Primrose to do that drawing for us. Winning 50-50 ticket is 794. Zero 794. Not here? Here? I was told that the winner of this evening's 50-50 will have to think about giving it to SLP. Thank you very much, PD Primrose. All right, how did I just hand it to them? All right, we just find the president or the treasurer. How is that done? I've been guided. How is that done? Just hand it to I've been guided. Okay, cool. All right. All right, at this point, we'll have our thought for the week and the benediction. I'll ask Chairman John to do that.
All right. Thank you, PD Derek. All good things must come to an end. So I'm going to ask our fellow Kiwanians, SLP members, and of course, guests of Kiwanians, could we just kindly stand? EP Mark, forgive me. Marcus Garvey quote of the day is understand we recognize humanity. We love humanity. And we're about to bring an alliance with all humanity that as far as that section and portion of humanity will ally itself with us. Father God, we just want to thank you for this evening. We want to thank you for everybody who would have participated in this exercise. And Lord, as we get ready to physically go to our separate homes, I pray and trust that socially we will remain connected so that we will, of course, do the course that we were set to do. Father, thank you again for everything, the benediction. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you very much, Chairman John. I'll not terminate this meeting before I say thank you to the members of the Kiwanis School of North St. Andrew for turning out in the numbers, both here at the POC and those online. And I've always wanted to say a special thank you to our unsung heroes, the tech team consisting of IPP Michael and PE designate Jason, who are here every week and ensure that the persons online have access to this meeting that we have every week. So can we give them a huge round of applause, please? With that said, this meeting of the Kiwanis School of North St. Andrew is now terminated.